He seemed like a savior, a man who appeared when women were at their lowest, offering them a lifeline, a job, financial security, and a safe place to stay. He was a shoulder to cry on, always there when they needed him, but his kindness came at a cost. What started as help was, in reality, a carefully laid trap. Before they knew it, he controlled everything, where they went, who they spoke to, and what they did. And if they dared to escape, he would stop at nothing to pull them back into his grasp, stalking them, tormenting them, turning their lives into an unrelenting nightmare. One by one, women around him began to vanish. Some disappeared without a trace. Others were found in brutal circumstances. Time and time again, he should have been caught, but he managed to keep slipping through the cracks and always found another victim. And the most disturbing part, he documented everything. He made videos with his victims' remains, watching them back with pleasure, sometimes even with their grieving families. This wasn't just a man pretending to help. He was something far worse, and he was hiding in plain sight. His name was Michael S. This case should have been stopped way sooner. He was able to evade justice time and time again. What he put those women through was horrific. As with most German cases, the names and some identities are not fully revealed to the public, but I will show you as much as I can. But before we dive in, if you find this video fascinating, then please drop it a like and leave me a comment below. And if you are new here, then please hit the subscribe button and consider following me on Instagram. It all really helps. Thank you. This video is created solely for educational and documentary purposes. It does not endorse or condone the criminal actions described within. In early 2019, Anna S., a woman in her mid-30s, was struggling to find her footing in life. Her dreams had always been to work as a nanny, but for one reason or another, that door had closed. Instead, she found herself stuck in a call center, barely making enough to survive. Anna lived a quiet life in her small apartment in Gelsenkirchen, Germany, sharing it with her two beloved dogs. Her closest connection was with her twin sister, Edith, who lived just 5 minutes away. They saw each other daily, even if it was only for a quick cup of tea. Beyond that, Anna's world revolved around work and home until she met Michael S. Their paths crossed on a dating app. At first, Michael seemed like everything Anna was missing. He was confident, successful, and had a life that felt put together, something Anna deeply craved. He drove a nice car, came from a wealthy family that owned multiple properties in the nearby city of Krefeld. And, most importantly, he seemed kind. His looks left much to be desired. He was overweight and balding, but Anna did not mind this, and they grew close quite quickly. Michael soon learned about Anna's struggles with her job, and he made her an offer. She could work at his mother's hotel, where she would get an apprenticeship and build a career. "I want to give you a leg up financially," he told her, but Anna refused. She wanted to find her own way. Eventually, she introduced Michael to her sister Edith and Edith's husband, Dirk. One evening, the four of them gathered to celebrate Michael's birthday, having drinks in the apartment he lived in, one of a block of flats owned by his mother. But something about him didn't sit right with Edith and Dirk. He was loud, self-centered, and seemed to turn every conversation back to himself. They tolerated him for Anna's sake, but deep down, they were wary of him. As the months passed, Michael continued to support Anna financially, while she figured out her next steps. But 6 months into their relationship, she decided to end things. Maybe she had begun to see what her family saw. But either way, the breakup was amicable, and they agreed to remain friends. For a while, Everything seemed fine until 3 months later. One evening, a fire broke out in Anna's apartment. Thick black smoke billowed from the windows as firefighters rushed to contain the flames. By the time they extinguished the fire, the damage was severe. Anna's home was destroyed, and unfortunately, her beloved dogs perished. Heartbroken and lost, Anna couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. How had this fire started? The thought that kept creeping into her mind, one that she didn't want to believe. Michael. But surely, he wouldn't do something so horrific, would he? What Anna and her family didn't know was that Michael S. had a dark past stretching back decades, a history of terror that had begun long before he had met her. It started in 1997 with a woman named Christine. She was 22 years old, married but not happy in this relationship, and so she started an affair. The man she had fallen for wasn't remarkable by any means, at least not in the eyes of her friends. Michael was an overweight, balding, loud and abrasive man. He was 24 years old at the time and working as a forklift driver at the Metro factory where Christine also worked. Michael made Christine laugh. He made her feel good. Maybe after the breakdown of her marriage, she was just looking for fun. And fun is exactly what they had. Their relationship was wild, filled with partying, clubbing, and long nights at house parties. They were inseparable, always social and always together. And before long, Christine moved in with Michael at his mother's hotel, and that's where the cracks began to show. Michael's life revolved around two women, Christine and his mother always came first. His friends later recalled how unnervingly close they were, how Michael called her multiple times a day, how he never defied her, and he seemed obsessed with one thing, giving his mother a grandchild. Christine was independent, strong-willed, and she didn't appreciate his mother meddling in their lives. The tension escalated into heated arguments, but there was something else, something seemingly small, that would trigger a far darker turn. Christine had brought her dog with her when she moved into the hotel. It was her pet, she loved it, and it was a companion, until one day, it vanished. When Christine got home from work, the dog was gone. Michael's explanation was strange. He claimed he had taken it to a friend's house, but when Christine tried to track down this so-called friend, she found no trace of them. No one had ever heard of them. She knew then Michael had done something to her dog. Desperate, she searched every pet rescue centre in the area, but her dog was nowhere to be found. That was the final straw. She ended the relationship immediately and walked away, going back to her husband, who forgave her for the affair. She just wanted to move on with her husband, and she thought she had closed that chapter of her life, but she was wrong. Months later, on August 19th, 1997, Christine was driving to work when she realised something was terribly wrong. Her brakes weren't working. Somehow, she managed to steer her car to a garage without crashing. When the mechanics inspected it, they made a chilling discovery. Someone had replaced her brake fluid with water. This wasn't a malfunction, it was an attempt on her life, and she knew exactly who was behind it. She reported Michael to the police, hoping that it would be the end of it, but all it did was enrage him. The real nightmare was only just beginning. Michael didn't take rejection well. After Christine ended their relationship, he became a shadow in her life, a constant menacing presence. He began to stalk her. He was seen standing outside her apartment at all hours, or in his car, creeping past her place. At work, he refused to leave her alone, bombarding her with pleas to take him back. When persuasion failed, the threats began, both physical and psychological. His harassment escalated to the point where Christine felt she had no choice but to move jobs, transferring to a sister factory in the hopes of escaping him. But Michael wasn't willing to let her go. On the night of October 2nd, 1998, Christine and her husband were seen leaving the apartment, laughing and joking, ready for a night out. They had got back together after her husband had forgiven her for the affair. They wanted to give it another go. Hours later, at around 6 a.m, a neighbour in the flat below was jolted awake by Christine's voice. "No, stop," she screamed. The neighbour hesitated, assuming it was nothing more than rough intimacy between the couple, so they rolled over and went back to sleep. They had no idea that they were listening to a massacre. What had actually happened was, Christine had come home, gone to her bed and started to undress, when Michael came out of nowhere. He had broken into her apartment, lying in wait. What happened next was beyond brutal. Christine was found on her bed, which was just a mattress on the floor, her body bearing 126 stab wounds. The attack was so ferocious that the knife had gone through her body, through the mattress, and into the floor beneath. She had been stabbed in the eyes, the head, and her torso. No part of her body was spared. Her throat was slit deep and deliberate. This wasn't just murder, this was rage. The next morning, Christine's husband knocked on the neighbour's door. His face was ghostly white. "Can you call the police?" he whispered. "My wife is dead. She's lying up there with her throat slit," he said. When officers arrived, they found her clothes neatly folded beside her bed. Her alarm was set for the next day, as if she had gone to bed expecting to wake up. But the door was locked from the inside. It was clear to the officers that Christine knew her killer. Michael S. quickly became the prime suspect. A search of his home uncovered damning evidence. Blue fibers from his underwear matched those found on Christine's pillow. During interrogation, he first denied even knowing where she lived, but when confronted with the evidence, he changed his story, admitting he'd been there that night, but still insisting he hadn't killed her. In February 1999, Michael went to trial. He remained silent, refusing to speak throughout the proceedings. Despite the overwhelming brutality of the crime, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to just 11 years, a shockingly lenient punishment. He appealed for early release multiple times, but each request was denied. But it was a clear sign that even behind bars, Michael showed no remorse. Christine was just 23 years old, and this was only the beginning of Michael's crime spree. In October 2009, at the age of 36, Michael S. was released from prison. For 3 years, he remained on probation, keeping a low profile. He moved back in with his mother, living a quiet, unremarkable life. But as soon as his probation ended, his old habits resurfaced. Michael began visiting street workers, picking up different women in his car. Then he met Sissy, and everything changed. At first, it was just business. He was a regular customer, but Michael wanted more. He started confiding in her, asking her personal questions, making her feel like he cared. "Why are you doing this? You're such a pretty girl," he told her. Slowly, their relationship shifted from client and worker to something more romantic. They started going on dates, movies, drinks, and soon Sissy was staying over at his place. By then, Michael had moved into a ground floor apartment in his mother's apartment block. But just like with Anna S., Michael became possessive and obsessive. He wanted to see Sissy every single day. He promised her a career, an apprenticeship, a stable career at his mother's hotel, much like he would go on to do with Anna S. Anything to lure her deeper into his grasp. His control tightened, but Sissy, feeling overwhelmed, found a way to keep some distance. She lied to him, telling him that she had a son at home. This would be an excuse to leave when he became too overbearing. For a while, she convinced herself this was a good thing. After all, in her line of work, it's rare to find someone who genuinely seems to care. Then came Valentine's Day, 2013. That evening, Sissy and Michael were at his apartment. He cooked her dinner, and afterwards they cuddled on the bed, watching TV. Everything seemed normal. Then, Sissy got up to brush her teeth and get ready for bed. She had no idea that the moment she stepped out of that bathroom, her life would change forever. Michael was waiting, standing in the doorway. He faced her, one hand gripping a wrench, the other clutching a can of pepper spray. Before she could react, he lunged at her. The first blow from the wrench struck her head. She collapsed to the floor, dazed. What followed was a fight for survival, one that lasted nearly half an hour. Kicking, punching, clawing at him, she fought with everything she had. But Michael was stronger. He overpowered her, tied her up and threw her on the sofa. Sissy was convinced she was going to die. But Michael wasn't done. He sprayed her with pepper spray, blinding her, then took out a stun gun and repeatedly electrocuted her, all the while hitting her with the wrench. It was a brutal, merciless attack. But then suddenly, he stopped. Through the burning pain, Sissy realized that this was her only chance. She had to stay calm. She asked him, "Why are you doing this to me?" Michael began to cry. Through his sobs, he accused her of lying about her son. He knew that she did not have one, and that's why he was angry. Thinking quickly, Sissy played along. She apologized, telling him she understood now and that she regretted lying. She said things could go back to normal if he let her go. And against all odds, Michael believed her. He untied her and insisted on driving her home so that he knew that she was safe. During that entire car ride, she must have been terrified, wondering if he would change his mind, but he didn't. The moment she was safe, she called her brother. When he saw her, he was horrified. Without hesitation, he took her to the police station. But at the station, things did not go as planned. As she told them of the brutal attack, officers didn't take her seriously. One even dismissed her, saying, "Look, you're a street worker," as if to suggest that violence was simply part of her job. The investigation went no further, and Michael walked free. Sissy, however, was never free again. She was terrified to leave her apartment, constantly fearing he would return. Then the text messages began. Michael messaged her repeatedly, begging for forgiveness. He sent money to her bank account, sent flowers, trying to lure her back, but Sissy wanted nothing to do with him. Then one day, she received a text from an unknown number. It read, "Your life is in danger." At first, she thought it was Michael trying to manipulate her again, but the sender insisted that this was real. The person claimed that Michael had contacted them, offering €5,000 to abduct her and take her to a warehouse. Still skeptical, Sissy demanded proof. The person sent her a photo of handwritten instructions in Michael's handwriting. He had written down her usual whereabouts, her home address, and the warehouse he wanted her to be taken to was a place Michael used to work. Once she was there, the plan was for Michael to take over. Now, Sissy knew. This wasn't paranoia. It wasn't a mind game. Michael was planning to kill her. She asked the person to go with her to report the incident to the police, and they agreed. Immediately, they went to the station. This time, the authorities finally took it seriously. Michael, already known for his violent past, was arrested. The following year, the case went to court. That's when Sissy learned about the horrifying past of Michael and that he had already served 11 years for manslaughter. Sissy realised that she had really been inches away from death that night. But once again, justice failed. Although Michael denied everything, he was still given a restraining order and sentenced to 2.5 years in jail. But he appealed his conviction, again claiming his innocence. The court was overwhelmed with what they deemed higher priority cases and delayed his next court date. For 5 years, Michael remained free to find his next victim. Soon after, Michael S. met another woman, Stephanie L., known as Steffi. She was just 23 years old, a young mother who had fled to Krefeld to escape an abusive and violent relationship. She had left her son behind, but her plan was simple: get back on her feet, build a stable life, and bring him to live with her. But right now, she was desperate. And when a woman is desperate, who is always there to help? Michael S. Steffi was working as a street worker, and Michael became a regular customer. But soon, he wanted more. He made her his usual offer: a place to stay, an apprenticeship at his mother's hotel, regular income, and most importantly, a new life. To Steffi, it sounded like salvation. She had nothing, and here was a man willing to give her everything. So she took the deal. She moved into the top floor of the apartment building, where Michael lived on the ground floor. At first, she was ecstatic. She posted online about how her life was finally turning around. She had hope again, and she was determined to make it work. But Michael had other plans. As we know now, he was never interested in helping. He wanted to own her. Michael had no self-worth, whether it was his appearance, his reliance on his mother financially, or his complete lack of independence. Something deep inside him was broken. He collected women like trophies, as if their presence validated his existence. And above all, he had one obsession: giving his mother a grandchild. But when these women rejected him, when they didn't fit into his fantasy, that's when he snapped, and he became something else entirely. One evening, Steffi asked Michael if she could borrow €20. That's all it took. He erupted in a rage. Steffi later claimed that Michael forced her into her flat and then forced himself on her, beat her, and tortured her, all over a simple request for money. Maybe it wasn't really about the money. Maybe something had been brewing inside him for a while. Maybe Steffi wasn't fitting into his plan. After the attack, Steffi confided in a friend, who immediately told her to go to the police. And just like with Sissy before her, the police did nothing. They logged the report, but Michael wasn't immediately arrested, which I find crazy because of his violent past. Instead, Steffi had no choice but to return home, to the same apartment building where her abuser lived beneath her. Then shortly after, she received a letter from Michael's mother. The message was clear. If she wanted to keep her home and her job, she had to retract her statement that she had given to the police. It read, and quote, "We are peaceful people who simply want a peaceful life." Then suddenly, Steffi vanished. Her friend couldn't reach her. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. Worried, the friend confronted Michael. She asked, "Have you seen her?" And he simply said no. Days then passed with no word from Steffi, and then she was found. She was locked inside her apartment, lying on her sofa, dead. Michael claimed he had nothing to do with it. Toxicology reports suggested she had OD'd on heavy substances, and it was not treated as a criminal investigation. But wasn't it a little too convenient? Michael had a pattern, a history. Women keep disappearing around him, yet once again he slipped through the cracks. And with Steffi gone, and with the knowledge of his violent past, we now return to Anna's story, where her flat has been set on fire and she suspects that Michael was the person who did it. Over the next few months, Michael S. was relentless in trying to force his way back into Anna's life. He knew she was struggling financially, so he sent her money and promised to buy her a new car. He even bought her a new dog, as if it would erase the pain of losing everything in the fire. He seemed to just want to make her happy, but Anna wasn't fooled. She saw the manipulation for what it was, and, once again, tried to cut off all contact. Deep down, she believed he was the one who set fire to her apartment. Not giving up, Michael devised a new plan. He knew she was still struggling financially, still worked a job she hated, so he tried to make himself look like the answer to all her problems. This time, he told her about his wealthy aunt who lived in another country. She was kind, he said, generous. Michael encouraged Anna to reach out to her, to tell her about her struggles. And so Anna did. The aunt responded warmly, asking her what her dreams were. Anna, cautiously hopeful, told her the truth. She wanted to open a daycare center. She dreamed of one day owning a home and starting a family. And then something incredible happened. The aunt offered to help make it happen. A check arrived in the mail, a staggering €754,000. Anna couldn't believe it. This was it, her chance. But what she would never know was that the check was a lie. There was no rich aunt. The money was fake. It was all Michael, in another attempt to force her back into his life, to control her. But even this wasn't enough to change her mind. Anna wanted nothing to do with him. No amount of money, no manipulation, nothing could make her trust him again, and that infuriated him. Then Michael made one final move, a last-ditch effort to pull her back in. He told Anna that he was going to end everything, a pathetic, desperate attempt to play on her emotions. And it worked. Concerned for him, Anna agreed to visit his apartment to see how he was doing. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. That same day, Anna's sister Edith messaged her. It was a nice day, and she invited Anna over to sit in the garden, just like they did almost every day. Anna replied quickly, saying yes, but that she had something to do first, but wouldn't be long. But hours passed. Edith began to wonder where she was, so she messaged again. This time, Anna's phone replied strangely. The tone felt off. The writing didn't sound like her. There were emojis. Anna never used emojis. Something wasn't right, and she never showed up that day. And by the next morning, she stopped replying altogether. Worried, Edith and her husband Dirk went to Anna's apartment. They knocked, no answer. But then they heard her dogs barking from the inside. Anna loved those dogs. She would never have left them alone like this. They knocked harder, called her phone, but still nothing. That's when they knew something was wrong. They called the fire department, who broke down the door. Inside, everything was normal, as if Anna had simply vanished into thin air. Her belongings were still there. A dirty plate sat in the sink, and her dogs were still in the apartment. Edith and Dirk were worried, and they reported her missing to the police. When police learned about Anna's troubled relationship with Michael S., they acted fast. They raided his apartment, searching for any sign of her. A cadaver dog was brought in, but it didn't pick up anything. Still, officers confiscated his laptop and hard drive. Michael, of course, played dumb. "I have no idea where she is," he said. Then the media got involved. Local news reports began pinning Anna's disappearance on Michael. The police believed it as well. They placed him under constant surveillance. They even tapped his mother's hotel phone, listening in on his conversations with her. What they heard was chilling. Michael laughed off the accusations, telling his mother, and quote, They don't even have a body, so they don't have anything. He ranted that the media and the police were out to get him, and his mother, she believed every word. Then, on November 26, 2019, Michael S. was arrested for the disappearance of Anna. Detectives had found damning evidence on his hard drive and laptop, but there was still one thing missing: Anna's body. When investigators searched Michael's hard drive, they uncovered something horrifying: a video, one that would finally confirm the fate of Anna. In the footage, a lifeless woman lay on the floor, her body facing away from the camera. It was Anna. She was identified through her tattoos. But the most disturbing part wasn't just that he recorded her, it was what Michael did to her remains. He filmed himself next to her body, touching her, laying beside her, and worst of all, he was aroused. Then, in a vile act, he urinated on her, desecrating her remains. But there was more. Investigators also found footage of Michael inside Anna's apartment, setting up a hidden CCTV camera. She had no idea it was there. But Michael had been watching her all along. He knew where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing at all times. Chillingly, the camera had been installed the same day her apartment caught fire. Investigators now believed that after planting the camera, Michael had set fire to the apartment. And then there were these Google searches found on the laptop, dozens of them, asking questions like, what's the best way to get rid of a body? How to make someone disappear? How to hide a body permanently? There were more videos on the hard drive as well. A lot were of drone footage, dozens of videos, all showing the same remote field. But why? Had he buried Anna there? There was also a photo of a concrete floor with what looked like a freshly dug grave. Was this where he hid her? There were so many questions and still no answers. Then, in December 2020, the trial of Michael S. begins. By this time, Michael had already been sentenced for his attack on Sissy. He had been in custody for over a year, but now he was finally standing trial for Anna's murder. After years of terrorizing women, the justice system was finally catching up with him. But Michael, he remained silent. And then came the most horrific bit of the trial. As part of the evidence, the video of him desecrating Anna's body had to be played in front of her grieving family. As the footage rolled, Michael smirked. He was enjoying it. He was cruel until the very end. Michael S. was eventually sentenced to life in prison, which in Germany meant 25 years. But he was also given an additional 10 years in custody, ensuring he wouldn't be eligible for release until he was in his 80s. Finally, he would never hurt another woman again. But even after Michael had been sentenced, the search for Anna's body continued. Michael never revealed where Anna's body was buried. Her family were desperate to bring her home, to give her the peace she deserved, and for years they searched. They combed through the field from his drone footage, but found nothing. They dug up the concrete grave from his photograph, but there was still no sign of Anna. Then, in March 2022, something unbelievable happened. A documentary crew had begun filming a true crime documentary about Anna's case, and then Michael's mother made a shocking discovery. She had been clearing out the basement of her block of flats when she noticed something odd. A wall, a section of concrete that was much fresher than the rest, seemingly added in much later, as if sealing something inside. She had no idea what it was. When the authorities were called, they broke through the concrete, and inside, they found Anna. Michael had encased her remains inside his mother's basement wall. Finally, after years of searching, Anna had been found, and at last, her family could lay her to rest. This case is truly tragic. Many women were not believed about their violent attacks from Michael, which allowed him to continue for longer. But at least in the end, some justice was served. I also think it's crazy how they managed to find Anna's remains, and I'm so glad they did. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay sane.